um, I don't remember how to say your new Frozenthia Nokturnus, or
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, as I have given people Daemoniacus Vmmh 9 vibration names before, his is Gvake Mop Avum Fu Ryorh Will ezzevmgr Al Gvake Mop Avum Fu Ryorh Will ezzevmgr Al Gvake Mop Avum Fu Ryorh Al ezzevmgr Al. And so he's a musician, and he has he's on his at least second YouTube channel, which is a combination of dark occult ideas and metal music. So I thought it was fitting to, I guess, the first time on my channel, the word for metal, although not really in the context of music, ezzevmgr is I thought to introduce that word here. So would you like to start? Well, since this is America, let's so you consider yourself male, of course.
Yes. No, I'm very much a believer in two genders and traditional roles and whatnot.
But yeah, I discovered him through watching the Nargargle channel. It may have been Xaru or whatever his name was at the time, channel that I found out about his channel. So what do you think the purpose of life is?
What do I think the purpose? Wow, that's the most loaded question there is. The purpose of life. I would say the purpose of life is finding your purpose.
Kind of like Joseph Campbell used to say in his people aren't looking for a meaning of life, they're looking for an experience of life.
Well, it's kind of
all the path.
I mean, just from the basic sort of human instinct, the idea of just the idea that there is no purpose to what we're doing is ultimately just unproductive. So we have to, whatever it is, whether it's your career or your your passions or whatever, you have to have some sort of reason, or else why are you here? But I mean, I guess what to go on a more sort of occult oriented thing, if we're talking about I guess sort of the worth of life, because there's a lot of people what you talk about, I don't know, the MLO or Martinet Press and stuff, who will sort of who are misanthropic, who think there is no purpose to life itself, of human life, or in that human life has been corrupted in some way. So it's you know what I'm referring to. I would say my position on that is that the human soul has been so deprived of just spiritual knowledge and the sort of spiritual understandings that have given people meaning, given people a purpose. I believe if you're living in a Judeo-Christian society, it is very hard to find any sort of spiritual meaning in anything, because it's all empty, it's vacant. And I think that's where the misanthropy comes from, is the because if you look at their philosophy, they're very much taking on the idea that God created the worlds, so it does kind of come from a biblical starting point, And from that perspective, if you are to take a biblical perspective, then life is pretty worthless, human life anyway, in my opinion.
Well, I see it sort of like, particularly since the state of Israel. Apparently, the literature made it sound better before that with the Jewish community, but the Christian idea of you see these videos, or you see it in person, these people yelling with bullhorns and all this other stuff. It's like the whole vicarious thing, that all you have to do is believe in Jesus. It doesn't matter whether you do any good or anything like that. I've lived in states where most people do not believe that that's good and truth matter. You just have to, well, except for, you have to accept Jesus. That's it. Other than that, and then you feel hopeless about doing whatever you have to offer. And something that you see often, particularly since the state of Israel, is either it's all about this one country, which they had given up on for centuries, or it's about, we're imagining ourselves the hardships we went through these other people. It's like, it's not your hardship. It's not even your ancestors. It's like Simon Yakubovich went through genetic testing, and depending on what he was looking at 90 to 95% of the Jews aren't even Semitic. It's just, it was just alternative Christianity, so people accepted it. And so when you do what you believe is the right thing, is it more likely to be out of love of doing good, or pleasing something worshipped, or personal enjoyment or pleasure, hope, fear, or hate?
I would argue that the action itself is not good or bad, and it depends on your reasoning behind it. For example, I mean, the most obvious, moral sort of dilemmas, or not dilemmas, but, the things that people will automatically classify as evil, the first things that'll come to your head, murder, rape, things like that. There are, I mean, not so much with rape, but there are, times when, murder is acceptable. There's times when killing another person is necessary and it has to happen. The difference is your motivation behind it, and that's part of why I think Christian morality is such a destructive thing on society, is because it blurs the line between actions and motivation.
I think most paths actually have that with intention. Actions are according to their intentions, sort of thing going on. And but yeah, there's a lot of so what do you think happened before birth for you, in a mystical sense?
You mean like creation or my life?
Well, yes, or if there's something particular, because people think they have a calling before birth and that sort of thing. So if that's but whatever the case is, you believe in your personal life, what was the...
I mean, things like reincarnation are interesting concepts. I'd like to think I had some super interesting past life and I was, I don't know, Alexander the Great or something. But, in real life, I was probably, in reality, I was probably not very interesting. If we are to accept reincarnation, which I generally do. I mean, I'm not gonna be one of those guys who comes on and says, I'm the reincarnation of Kalki or something. I don't think I'm that important, but I mean, I think, in some sense, that people coming up with things like that is another sort of answer for this existential nihilism created from this void of Judaic religions.
I've looked at many of the cases of the claims of reincarnation, and it's like particularly the one particular group that I'm releasing stuff right now on is they basically lead you towards having whatever sort of experience you say. Oh, if I was in Atlantis, who would I be? And that sort of thing. And you really see, well, I was male, female, this, I was a rapist, and all this other stuff. It's like, just assuming that you're all across the board, and either to make them feel not special or to work out one's own particular issues. I mean, I am open to certain possibilities being possible, but I just haven't heard anything that would make it seem like the most reasonable thing. It's always something in their life that you can point at if you know enough detail.
I mean, I think there's a problem in general in the occult of everyone wants to validate their already existing worldview. So, they'll sort of just, whatever sort of spiritual knowledge they feel like they've, received, they will kind of twist it in a sort of way that fits, their narrative. Because I mean, I think that's how people are in general. And a lot of people will will filter out the things that don't conform with their pre-existing mindset, and that's something which I try not to do. I mean, like everyone else, I do it to some extent, but I try not to do that, and that has led me to a lot of confusion, changing my mind, and things like that.
Well, back when I was back when I was a good LDS church boy and stuff, they, because I was different, I had to go to the psychiatrist. And this same psychiatrist, it turns out, if you weren't a member of the church, the missionaries from that church would circle around his office and sometimes pick up people and say, "Oh, well, we don't consider you mentally ill for having this spiritual experience," but the doctor, but the doctor himself would. And so now it's one thing having different experiences. It's like I've had horrible migraines. If I saw a couple of people coming back from getting baptized, and I was blurry vision, everything was louder and brighter from migraine falling down, that explains a lot of Joseph Smith's first vision account. I don't feel like I need to refute certain things. If I'm going to interpret things, I at the very least don't say they're as authoritative as one person may say it over me, that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, in a sense, that's kind of how the Abrahamic religions have survived, with Christianity and Islam. I mean, especially Islam. Islam is very similar to, what you're describing, the visions, the whole idea of Prophet Muhammad seeing angels in a cave and stuff. These sort of, how do I put it? These singular experiences that can't be, validated in any sort of way, are essentially the what do you call it, the bedrock of, like, sort of post Torah Judaic thought.
Well, certainly one of the things is those who don't have the experience, it's like maybe you can explain it right, but it's like, so much is lost in it. It's like I try to do videos in the middle of rituals and stuff, and it's like, what, people can't tell how I feel, or if I see something, weird. I guess I mention stuff sometimes, but it's like, even when you got the camera right there, it's like some of the psychic and stuff even isn't coming through. But yeah, I don't know what you mean. Just learning and passing on whatever the experiences was is. I
would say more taking the experience for granted. Taking the words of and specifically in the case of Islam, the warlord prophet's word for what he saw, and and it's very similar. You'll see a lot of cults will do this too. The leader had a vision from an angel, and now he wants you all to drink Kool-Aid. It's essentially abuse of the human instinct to trust someone else who you are ideologically connected with in some way, the leader of your religion. You have, and I'm guilty of this too. You're a lot less likely to question the words of someone who you generally agree with. That's not to say you don't. I definitely do question people who I agree with on most things. That's not to say that. But generally speaking, you're going to have a more, you're going to be more inclined to, mesh well with a person who shares most of your convictions and stuff like that.
Well, at least there though you have, and if you look at the roots of a lot of stuff, it's like the root of Buddhism wasn't that he said, hey, check out these things for yourself. Don't take things just because I say it. Look at this. So at least there's the look down into the waters. Doesn't it get so dark you can't even see your hand right in front of you? Doesn't don't you lose your breath when you go up in the sky? There's all sorts of things. At least they're telling you, that sort of thing. Now, if Paul, if Paul, the founder of Christianity, fell down and went blind for a few days and heard a voice, I figure it's the guy he was chasing, personally, myself. But the interesting thing about Paul, though, is it's clear the dude was a philosopher. He was going back and forth, even according to the Bible. But I'm going to let you say your thing. So do you have any idea of what you think is going to go on for you after death?
I mean, the goal of the path, is ascension. I don't know, because I haven't, lived my life, and I do believe that what happens after death probably has at least some sort of connection to what you do in life. I would say that I'm most inclined to believe that when you die, your astral body ascends from your physical body and leaves the physical body, and that's the extent of the afterlife, is that you're an astral spirit. At the same time, there's problems with that too. I don't need to get into it too much, but essentially what they say about immortality, right, is eventually it's just suffering. So I don't know. Would I want that to last forever and ever? I don't know. I haven't done it yet, but I would assume, or not assume, but generally what I think is most and this comes from a lot of different people say this. This isn't one sort of group, and it makes most sense to me. Yeah.
Well, you said the astral body. So you have any idea of how many bodies a person may have, or anything like that? Are you just saying there's like two, or?
Well, it's interesting. VK did a video on the aspects of the soul, what was he saying? The spirit animal, the shadow self, the higher self, things like that. And I can't really speak to that because I haven't done a whole lot of those kind of workings, but it's an interesting theory.
Because I know, for example, the Egyptians had 9. I've seen groups that say like 3 and 2, all sorts of different numbers, I guess. But what do you believe about deity?
Deity? What I mean, like essentially, like what deities are, or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What they are? Any deity, divinity, however, whichever one we're.
I would say that I believe that that they're, how do I put it? That they are also spiritual bodies, similar to the astral body, but their origin is of the void. At least the sort of deities that I regularly commune with and work with are the ones of the void, of sort of primal creation. Now, I for the record, I would not call myself an anti-cosmic Satanist. I'm not saying that we will all eventually return to a state of complete nothing and darkness. I don't really believe that, but I do believe that that's the source.
So not so at the very least, not the sort of being that humans and animals are in that.
Yeah. I also don't believe that they're just other humans like us, but they're aliens. I mean, they're alien in the sense that they're from somewhere else. They're extraterrestrial. But I mean, no, I'm not a JOSer either. I don't think that they're Nordics.
So do you have any favorite attributes of divinity that you look at?
What do you mean?
Well, some would look at it in emotional terms. Some would look at it in terms of certain powers of this or that or the other, or some other way of translating, names, essences.
Well, it's kind of intangible, don't you think? Because to me, magic is less of an activity that you do, and it's more of a feeling, if that makes sense. I mean, it is a thing you do, but
it's closer to Aleister Crowley's definition of magic in terms of willful changes of consciousness.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly which words he means. I reword everything. But so how much time do you think can be spent on a daily basis when it comes to spiritual practice?
Morning meditations and meditation and ritual at night, at the very least. That's it.
Anything special in terms of weekly or monthly or yearly?
Occasionally, I will go into the forest and do group rituals.
You said group rituals?
Yeah.
So you're a member of a coven or some other sort of order, or?
No, not necessarily. I have other friends who are into the same sort of things that I am. I've thought about setting up a coven and all that. The only problem is I don't think that I don't think that the people who I practice with are people who would necessarily get along in a group setting. It'll be more like 3 or 4, sometimes just me and someone else.
What is this? The crisscross. Is there anything particularly of meaning to this star and dark that you have behind you?
Oh, that's I painted a Dark Throne logo, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, covered. So, but so I'm unfamiliar. So I like to ask about symbols. That's
yeah.
So what sort of things do you think it would be hard to do in the name of whatever sort of entity you're communicating with? Or
the hardest thing for me has always been physically seeing them. Usually I'll have to use some sort of medium to do it if I'm not in some sort of deep meditative state, or I haven't taken psychedelics or something.
So you do use drugs ritually on occasion, some sort?
Yeah, well, I kind of, I mean, I'm not sit here slamming dope before my rituals, but yeah, to a certain extent, there's definitely a shamanic value, I think, in psychedelics and marijuana, particularly.
Well, certainly some of the stuff that's with the stuff nowadays, it's like, um, I was offered a job because a very high paying job because of my knowledge of drugs, and then a year and a half later, 37 people got arrested at the address I was told to go to. But I was ranting at some guy, I guess at night or something, because you don't know how pure that stuff is. It can be like 1% pure, and you don't even know what's in it. And the stuff that's guaranteed to be in it, I mean, like, I remember when they told us, basically they went around the schools. They were afraid that people were going to make meth, so they went around the schools and they basically told us how to make meth. And then next thing you know, someone was busted in every single school. And it's like we didn't even hear of anybody being busted personally, but it's like, even without any further adulterants, it's like there's no way in the world I'm going to touch that, especially after being prescribed all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's good moments with painkillers, but if I have to have drain cleaner in there and rat poison,
Yeah.
yeah.
I definitely stay away from pills or from hard stuff like that. I find that sort of stuff actually has the opposite effect. It makes it a lot harder to get in touch with the spirit and the spiritual side.
It's like I read Aleister Crowley's Diary of a Drug Fiend, and that book is it goes very heavily into some of this stuff. But you got to remember that was back in the day when heroin was safer than Tylenol. I mean, it still is safer than Tylenol, but again, all the other stuff you have to get with it, and not knowing your dosage, it's a completely different thing that you're doing. And some of the other stuff too is like, so yeah, so it's not quite the same. That's one of the things that he said, is once they outlawed it, people started cutting it with all sorts of stuff, and you'd go crazy a month, absolutely crazy a month doing what was generally a safe drug. But
right. I mean, and that's kind of part of the reason I figured this drug war stuff is probably more of an attack on spirituality than anything else.
Well, that was the thing. The churches allowed alcohol, so the things other than alcohol were the things that they focused on trying to keep down until they could make it official.
Always the exception.
What?
Alcohol is always the exception for the right, or the anti-drug right, not the right in general, but you know what I mean. The sort of moralizing, somebody think of the children type of drug moralizers. It's always like alcohol's fine, whatever.
You see somebody my age someone in their 30s that looks like they're in their 50s or 60s because they've been smoking so much, complaining about the people using other drugs, and it's like, you don't really have the high ground here.
Right.
It's like you mentioned somebody that they've made fun of other drug users on their channel, and it's like, wait, you're in your early 20s? He said he was in his early 20s on the video. And it's like, wait, if he told me he was 40, I would have believed it. What
were we talking about?
VK Jahannam,
yeah.
At least in that one video, I don't remember what the age difference between the one video and now is, but he hasn't kept his youth, if that's what he's trying to claim. But he was claiming that, my spiritual relationships keep me from the effects of this, and it's like, they really don't.
doesn't really look like it. If anything, it looks like it's aging him. EA too, by the way. Coeddings looks like he's being aged.
Didn't it basically admit 10 years on and off with meth is not exactly exactly going to keep a person together. No,
but recently Coedding looks a lot older than he does in his even videos from like a year or two ago.
Well, you saw the one interview. He's kind of this is his, except for smoking marijuana, I guess this is his sober October. But since his breakup, he's admitted to using some illegal stuff since, but he's trying to, I guess, because he mentioned it, he wants to not have it on his person when he gets, in case he gets someone says, oh, this person says that's a reason to search, I guess, so you better not be in that position, at least for a bit. But there's certainly worse things to do. I think it's you look at the corporate prison system. Since the corporations have taken over, they want to fill as many seats in the prisons as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there's all these statute things, and you have rapists and murderers and stuff that they could catch if they were focusing on them, but they're not. It's so easy to get somebody to slip up and say something. I mean, if you like a 24-year-old looking woman, you're gonna talk to someone too young at some point. So they're just looking to get people like that, or looking to get, you cross the border from one state to another. Oh, marijuana's not allowed here. So, right.
Yeah, no, I mean, the government's been, I mean, not the government. I mean, yes, the government, but you know what I mean. The police in general have been doing shit like this forever because it gets them promotions. If you get more arrests, you essentially that can prove to the department that you're a better cop. Even if they're minor, stupid arrests that don't mean anything.
Well, the real worrisome thing to me was back in 2011, in a response to the particular upturn in ambulance chasing and suing for police for them not showing up quick enough. It's like, well, if the traffic's not good enough for them to get there as quick as possible to clear traffic, suing for the police. If you're under police protection, or if you're in prison or something, they have a liability to protect you, but not outside. So therefore, their enforcement of the law, they also remove some barriers on the police enforcing the law. So if you get a restraining order, don't think the police are going to necessarily, enforce that, because that's one of the things that people thought, is you get a restraining order. And it's like, well, particularly nowadays, they don't have to enforce anything, no matter how the thing was violated. You hand them an A-class felony, they're like, oh, no, we got some traffic tickets or something to look at first. I've literally reported some very serious crimes because people think, oh, you're a very spiritual person, let's confess these things. And it's like, I'm not going to condone, some daycare worker tells me some crimes they committed as a daycare worker. I'm either not going to stay silent about it, or I'm going to, I better not say anything. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So. You said the hardest thing for you to do is that is the seeing of the beings that you're encountering. So you hear them or feel them, or how else do you sense them?
Yes, literally everything, pretty much, except for straight visual sight, which I can get through, scrying especially, and like I said, like meditations to an extent. But these will be more like in the mirror, my face will become the face of the demon, or I will see the spirit behind me in the crystal ball, things like that. And I wonder, because a lot of people, I mean, we are just talking about co-wedding, so he's a good example. They say that they will physically, literally, like appear to you like a person. And I've never had that happen, which at first kind of, well, not at first, but like for a while that really got to me. I was like, oh shit, like I'm not seeing them. I'm supposed to be seeing them, and then I think about it more. It's like there's there could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe I'm just not ready to see them, like that.
Well, I do sort of side with the idea, whether it's that sort of experience or otherwise. You get what you're capable of making, the decisions that you maybe should be making, or you don't get it. I mean, that doesn't mean one doesn't strive towards things. It's like, well, I'll never be ready if I don't. Well, of course, you'll never be ready if you don't try. But you're familiar with, I guess, the term Nexion, what that would be. I get the way I think of it is that, we're the physical Nexions for whatever spiritual experience we have.
The Nexion, the Stargate, the opening of the Stargate, like what 098 kind of talks about.
I've encountered the Order of Nine Angles existed before the whole those movies, but the ancient Egyptians had a Stargate sort of ritual, particularly to do it around the equinox or the equinoxes. There's two of them. What am I thinking? But yeah, you kind of, I guess in a way it is kind of like the movie. When you see the movie and you're screeching through this, you don't even know if that's going to be it, or where you're going, you're just a blur of colors and sound, and you're just going somewhere. That's what I think about the Scargate, and then you kind of might, see encounter something that you can explain somewhat, but have you ever in the vision state encountered like a text or
a text? You mean like a book, like a literal, like physically seeing a book?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
No. I've channeled a lot of messages, and I've written things down, but I haven't seen a book.
Yeah, apparently, what I have, it's like some of these you can't really remember as anywhere near as much as you want to. But okay. Well, I don't know when this is going to turn off. This is my thing. I've never used this thing before. So, okay. Okay. Oh, what type of? Did I ask you the? Is there anything difficult for you to do in the name of your spiritual practice, or something, some type of thing that you think you would never do?
You did, but I'm going to re-answer that question because I don't think I answered that properly. I said seeing spirits, which doesn't make sense in response to that question. I would say that pretty much everything I've read, I don't know if you've read like The Black Art of Vampirism, or kind of like TOB kind of stuff. I mean, that would be the most obvious, I guess. I probably wouldn't go out and commit senseless acts of violence in the name of being acausal or whatever. That would probably be the hardest, but I also think it's the least necessary. I mean, I don't want to talk shit about those groups, but I think, yeah, I'm not sure I'd be down to go, waterboarding with my buddies dressed up like
yeah.
ISIS.
Well, that's one of the things I was told a few things. It's like, okay, what's on the other end of that if you have to be waterboarded and bleed all over yourself from cutting yourself before the group, and that sort of thing. And I already know how sick, if even if I get good meat, the eating nothing but meat for a month is, I don't think I can take that one. But yeah, if they're getting if they're getting you ready for torture, you never know what sort of behavior might be at the end of that they're gonna call you into. So I'm kind of worried about that.
The main thing I don't get about that group specifically is like, and I mean, and this kind of relates to a lot of other groups too, actually, now that I think about it. But where does the passion for that sort of come from? Because when I look at a group that just kind of wants to turn everything to shit, and they know that they're literally saying like, yeah, we're evil, we just want to turn everything to shit, like. You know what I mean? Where's the energy, the passion for just, I want everything to turn to shit, come from? I mean, I guess it's just violent, just senseless, anger, which is fine, but and I get that, I totally relate to that, but I think there's generally ways you can deal with that are productive, that lead to something. Because I don't really think that these people would actually want to live in the kind of society that they advocate for anyways. I think if they actually tried to lead some sort of satanic Nazi Bolshevik revolution, it would not turn out the way that they think it would.
Well, it's do you know the origins, for example, of Draconian? Are you familiar with that?
The Draconian current. I mean, you're talking about like the root of the word draconian, or?
Well, well, the current sort of kind of comes from the same thing. Dracon, which again, where they got the word dragon from, I don't remember whether he was in Athens or just a figure sort of in that whole mesh of things. Eventually, at some point, he, set up this really harsh law. He had things on little four-sided little, the tetrahedron little things. That's how he would write his law. And basically, the people being punished, sort of some of the stuff that you saw in Soviet Russia, if you were really valued by the community, maybe you could have killed a series of people that they caught you, but we want to make sure that let's put him on house arrest and have him in the thing. But somebody who got mad and ended up damaging the sidewalk, kicking it one day, that dude gets executed. So that's the sort of thing is this not really distinguishing sort of super harsh law that, might as well commit something really super serious. I used to go to this peace and justice fair, and they'd always have this guy right outside, are you a good person? And if you can't figure out anything, it's like, have you ever thought of this? And it's like, but, treating, well, if you've thought about a woman, like as if you killed a bunch of people, that's, I guess, where the Draconian thing sort of might have caught on, as those people are going around doing their thing.
And again, it's like I get the appeal to. I'm not really trying to shit talk them. It's more like I think that they're somewhat deluded in the sense that they think that they're going to be the tyrant and not the tyrannized. They think that they're going to be the SS and not the, person, on the train going to the camps. That's their. I'm not going to get into the Holocaust either. They call it the sinister concentration camps. They know exactly what they're talking about. But you know what I mean. Like they think that they're going to be the alphas and not the people who are being downtrodden, and I think that that's a bit delusional.
Well, I guess certainly got to honor the sense of, hell, here's this goal. I'm going to be the super disciplined, transform sort of person. But
sure.
I don't know if some of it comes. You do see something with some groups. I don't. Could some of it come from like? I've not completely non-spiritualized, and this is where it happens to end up looking the worst, I think, for some people. Well, I mean, in general, there's exceptions, but you find somebody that was traumatized, and then they traumatize themselves worse by their decisions and stuff. It's like it depends on how conscious you are in a drug overdose, for example. The people are just have no real memory of it. They go from genius to retarded because they overdosed a couple times. They might not even have any but some people, it's like, no, it's absolutely the worst thing that they've ever, some people just have that, but anyway, they hurt themselves again and again with chemicals and behavior. They force themselves to do things, and then they realize they shouldn't be doing it, and then they end up being the same. Then they end up being the same sort of person, or even worse than the people who bullied them or raped them or something. And I've definitely witnessed that. I saw that in someone myself, as they seemed more traumatized by what they did rather than the person that it was done to. But going off a tangent, we guess. I'm not sure if that there is going to end this here, but because that can't happen back and forth around the block. If that's going to be the case. So, have you witnessed what you would call a miracle?
I'm hesitant about the word miracle because Christians use it to describe seeing Jesus in toast, but there's absolutely all the time I get, crazy, like, coincidences and just uh, results from my rituals.
Okay, that sort of answered my question. I was going to talk about control of coincidence, but so you would say that you practice what they call low magic.
Well, I'm not really sure what you mean by that, because my like, I don't know, in my sort of like local witchcraft community, the idea of like high versus low magic is like magic, and low magic would be like, I don't know, tarot readings. So how are you defining that?
I guess that depends on what's meant by the whole tarot reading thing, but I mean in terms of stepping aside from things like development and there's the fence. This isn't exactly the place to back into. I'm sorry, I'm just thrown off a bit of I mean, like trying to control material circumstances, but not necessarily trying to develop or contact or build spiritual relationships or anything.
I'd say I do both, but yeah, I do practice that as well.
Well, the thing with tarot cards, I guess, is that you end up building your sense of predicting.
Mm.
That's I mean, you can tell. Oh, okay. That's curving here. You know what I mean. You shuffle the card and you can predict it better. Far better than chance which cards are going to come up. But I've never really had the experience or I'm not even sure thought the thing that you could just shuffle a deck of cards and tell the future in that sort of way.
Right.
I mean, you may be provoked to certain things that, you never thought of that before until you see this combination. But so, have you had deja vu?
Absolutely. I mean, when I'm on the subject of tarot, when I do tarot, I usually try to incorporate that into some form of higher magic. So if I'm going to do a reading, I'm probably going to try to work with Vasago, for example. Deities who have a good understanding of the future.
Did you have you seen the Carol Poke-Runyon and Church of Medic Science is material?
I don't think so.
The Vasago Millennium Prophecy, but I saw that Dean Koontz book turned into a movie, Hideaway. That was my first exposure to Vasago. I wasn't reading the Croatia or anything when I first saw that movie. But that's not, aside from calling him a prince of hell, it doesn't really mash in with what the Goetia says of him. But it was the first movie I think that I saw that had a truly, it moved me. I mean, I guess the graphics weren't all that good. I guess today even I could do better than that. But back in the day, it was pretty good. Because the guy died and he's brought back, and then another guy, they do the same thing and he's brought back, but it's not. They were kind of worried about doing it, but you had a psychotic person who killed his mother, his sister, and himself for a ritual, and of course you're going to have different results. But I don't know where I was going with the
Did you see the movie Hereditary?
Hereditary. I don't remember. I don't. If it's anything remotely recent, I haven't seen it.
It's relatively new. It's a horror movie, but it's got a payment in it. They it's a pretty I mean, as far as Hollywood goes, I'd say it's probably one of the better depictions of like demons in like horror movies and stuff. They're more like dark humanoid figures than like the sort of goetic traditional drawings. Because I mean that at least that's my experience. I've never seen anything that looks like what's he called? Fewer. I've never seen a demon look like that. I've never seen a demon look crazy, but
Fewer.
I don't know where I was going with that either. But you know, it is a pretty good movie.
The interesting thing, my like the Goetia work is what I've called it. Not even expecting there's like differences, sort of predictable patterns that come up in terms of colors and some other things that I mean, either their rank as marquises or princes and that sort of thing, or something very particular to it. And Paimon, yeah, I can understand. I can't say whether or not the number of legions or any of that. You really can't tell after a certain point. Although, have you ever got the sense of a presence that it's like, here's the exact number, but it's like it's not like you see them and count them.
Here's the thing. I've never directly seen any demon with like any other spirit like behind them or anything. But at the same time, I usually don't see spirits directly, and I would imagine that if they do have, if they arrive with anyone else, they're probably not. Well, they're probably like there, just not, I'm not receiving messages from them. I'm not, seeing them in the mirror or whatever.
But it's interesting. Paimon is the Paimon can mean Pa Moon is a musical instrument basically. So it makes sense why, at least my experience in that area is that it's of the loudest things. It's not that it's hurting me. It's just you can tell it's louder.
My experience with Paimon, my first experience with Paimon, was that he actually had a very good sense of humor. He started talking to me in a very like how do I put it? Just like kind of silly, like a kingly voice, like kind of mocking me for how formal I was, I guess. But me and Paimon have had a good relationship, and part of that is definitely music, as you said. That's interesting. You bring that up because Paimon likes like, from my experience, anyways, that Paimon likes kind of like marching music, like kind of like ready to go off to war kind of music. And Lucifer actually likes like rock and roll, like not metal, like classic rock, that kind of thing. And a lot of them are Lucifer in particular is is usually depicted as having very being I think the Bible calls him like he was like the best singer in heaven's choir or something like that.
That's one that gets particularly mixed. There's all sorts of doctrines these Christians have is based on their linguistic misunderstandings.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, when they definitely when they mix it in the devil, the whole Ezekiel and the lead musician. I mean, the guys over drums and wind instruments and string instruments, and I feel like I'm not pronouncing regular words right. But yeah, that's definitely the thing. An entity I think would be more on the sort of light, sort of Folklore would be sort of could be kind of hard and heavy, but kind of a relaxing sort of pulse rate. But seer, sort of like a yeah, sort of the light and dainty sort of thing, I think would be the sound that would be liked in that regard. And that's also the beautiful angel sort of thing going on. But that's, you know, I didn't see anything like that. Any particular other than the Goetia, any particular grimoire that you've worked through or focused on?
Well, I don't work traditional goetic magic. I'm not the type of guy who's gonna, you know, draw a big ass magical circle on my floor. But I use goetic sigils, and I will, if I can, preferably write my own chants and my own things. So, you know, I'll use sources like ones more that I trust. Like I try to use like Mark Allen Smith or sometimes VK. But my mainly I try to stick with Mark Allen Smith's stuff. I trust him the most out of any occultist.
As much as there could be something of going through the steps and all that sort of stuff, it does seem from pretty much everything you hear, except the people's like, oh, well, I couldn't get everything together, so that's why it didn't work, or that sort of thing, is that you really don't have to have the things. It's like, okay, music's metal, that sort of thing, but you can use any metal or that, you know, etch something in aluminum foil or something, instead of, you know, I can't afford gold, so I can't work with the 9 or 10 kings, depending on which one Goetia one you look at, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I'm just kind of reminded of like, you know, I would read like Liber Falcifer and stuff, and you know, there's certain rights in there. Actually, to a much greater extent, like some of the stuff that like Asher Shadim writes, like no one's gonna do this. No one has all this shit to do a ritual with, and no one's gonna, you know, I mean, acquire those things. It's just a ridiculous expectation. You know, so to me, I think it is important to. I mean, intent is everything. I don't necessarily believe intent is everything. I think that's been like overused and over, you know, people have hyped that up, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's more like intent is important, but it's not paramount. What's paramount is your passion and your devotion, which is similar to intent, but I think they're different. I think that they're markedly different because when you're talking about intention, right? That's talking about the you know, your sort of what you want to happen. Your intent in doing it is the outcome, the result. But you know, the passion is your passion for the work itself, for the ritual itself, for the deities themselves.
Or like I always talk about the well, not always, but yeah, the evoking yourself. Well, you can't just. I mean, it's a start. It's like I've, you know, how many rituals or how many things have I at least started performing from a book, you know, but you know, that's just the start. Is a name and a symbol, or reading something from a book and then shutting your eyes and thinking about it, you know. Because yeah, it does just like, you know, the completely black and white morality. It does. I do definitely agree with that. That it does matter to a degree what you're doing. I asked. Is there anything in particular other than rituals that you do as a spiritual process, or?
Yeah, meditation's a big one. I do actually pray sometimes. I do pray to my deities. But I try to make it distinctive from, sort of the oh Lord Jesus, please give me this and that, and please make everything okay for me. Just give me everything, like I try not to do that. I try to be I try to make it more about being appreciative of them than acquiring things.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've mentioned this so much. Again, I've never recorded with this thing, so this is longer than I expected by far. But I think you already answered if you've experienced what you would call prophecy or not. But I'm asking again.
Prophecy. I've gotten more like immediate prophecy. I haven't been told anything that's going to happen in like 20 years, but I've been warned in advance before something really bad happens, for example. But like it'll be a few days in advance. I haven't gotten any sort of like prophecy about the end of the world or anything.
So have you had a out of body experience or near death experience or any of that?
Yeah, out of body a few times. I have not died or had a near death experience, thankfully, but I definitely have left the physical body.
So do you go out? Do you go up or down or out or?
So I go up. I go up. My first experience with astral projection. This is when I was like pretty new in getting into like Joy of Satan type stuff, and I was meditating, and then I started just rising up, and I wasn't expecting it, so I was freaked out at first. I was like, whoa, and I kind of panicked, so I fell back down. But the feeling of it now doesn't scare me, but there's, how do I put it? There's like an invisible line between being in and out of body that's hard for me to cross. I'm not very good at astral projection as a practice. I've done it like a few times. I know I know people who say that they can do it just on command like that. I don't really get that, but
Largely that's sort of claim I see from cult leaders or people who have personally put themselves as the number one in the group. Less than the thing, and it's like, as I said, I've I coincided something I'm doing right now with a seminar that's just ended, and that guy, it's obvious he remembers less than a lot of people even just starting out in the group, but he makes it sound like, oh, I just I dwell on these planes, I don't have to remember this stuff anymore. And it's like, no, you're just had some of it early on and just piggybacking on the rest of us now that you're leader.
You also use like spiritual mumbo jumbo to justify just about everything. JOS does that a whole lot. Our site got shut down. It's because we're being astrally attacked by the Jews. Whatever.
Well, that's one problem. You're familiar with what happens with Exaro. You never know whether he's going to have a video up for 5 minutes or 5 days or what's he going to do. And
he's an interesting character. Can we talk about him a bit?
Yeah, I this thing's still going. So yeah, let's. Yeah, I thought I was going to interview him too. But yeah, he's. I guess he's afraid maybe it will stay online.
Right.
Which it will. So.
I talked to him a couple times through Facebook call, and I don't think he's actually disingenuous at all. Is the thing. I see people who will comment saying, "Oh, you're just faking being a Satanist, for blah blah blah. Why do you keep deleting your videos?" I don't think that's what it is. I think he literally is so obsessive about it that he can't come to any conclusions about it, because anytime he finds something that goes a little bit against his idea of what he's come to understand as Satanism, then delete the videos and freak out. I think he really cares about it, but he's
Yeah. Well, the fact he's admitted to being taken off to the insane asylum 5 times kind of indicates where some of what we witnessed from here, and he's basically admitted to why he's not in the place. He had a good place to live, it sounded like, and how he kind of ruined that more or less.
That I didn't hear.
It sounds like he's like breaking into homes and stuff now. I guess he vandalized or something the place he lived because he had a fit, much like before when he was hauled. It's like he did say the police were called the one time when he threw a fit and broke his computer, and that sort of behavior got worse, I guess.
It's all that black flame. Too much black flame. Continue.
Now I have contacted Nargargle recently, so I guess he isn't dying. Maybe he was talking about like family or something. But because he mentioned something about cancer, and then he started in one of his videos, and why would they be given cancer or something like that, and then he started swearing in a bunch of stuff that I guess resulted in this channel being removed. But I guess he sounds a lot calmer now.
I never knew him to be not calm, to be honest. Every Nargargle video I saw was him, to be honest, droning about something for like 30 minutes that I couldn't really be bothered with. But
well, that's what most of his videos nowadays are. Now he is subscribed to my channel under a different name. So, but his book's a lot more understandable and organized than because I mean I did watch basically anything on that channel I would watch, but yes, some of it is he has a subject and he squiggles and talks for however long he decides to talk, and other ones he was squiggling and screaming about something, and I was trying to mystically interpret whatever drawings and letters might come in the middle of that, and it was a fun exercise. But it's interesting to see the development with that guy. Though is his Healing Temple of Mew to the Nargargle Schlad channel to the Church of Nowhere stuff and this Gnostic stuff. You see how it blend. I see definitely how it blends together. Because I think I mentioned to you, I think the whole Mew thing is like kind of a Tiamat sort of figure. So, because in his the Epistles of Lord Satan book, it's well pronounced different. Instead of Mew, it's Mu. So Mu and.
Okay, how is he spelling Mew? Because every time I think Mew, I think of the fucking Pokemon. How is he spelling that?
MU, and it's okay. after this Lemurian sort of thing, and so it's this the lost continent of the Pacific sort of mythology, and so there's like a mystical realm down there with beings, but it got a more sinister tinge on the Nargargle channel. But he was already doing the stuff with that weird mannequin head and the seaweed and stuff like that. That was already coming into it there, and it kind of really sounded like a ended up as a satanic trinity with the 9 gatekeepers and 4 classes of elemental demons and stuff like that. So.
Interesting guy. What a goofball. But
Uh,
yeah.
but no, I thought when his channel was going down and I didn't hear from him for a couple months or something, that it was like, yeah, I thought maybe that cancer talk meant he was dying. But okay, let's see about another question. So you've mentioned interaction with these with some sort of jinn or whatever you would call them. Do they operate as some sort of inner or outer guide, or what sort of relationship is had there?
It's weird because it's a weird thing you mentioned, the internal external thing. That's actually a conversation I have with myself a lot, that I try to kind of grapple with, because my experience is always external, almost always, unless I'm doing it specifically an invocation, and I usually do evocations. Except for Belial, he kind of doesn't play by the rules. He'll kind of do whatever he wants. But yeah, I intellectually, I want O9A to kind of be right, that they're all like, sort of aspects of the consciousness that you know originate in the a causal and the void and all that. But at the same time, I also kind of sympathize more with the idea that they're external, separate from us. But at the same time, it's am I comfortable calling it a spirit? Really? But it's kind of also the best term. It's a weird. I guess my answer is both. That'd be my answer. I guess I'd say they're both internal and external.
Well, I know certain languages have certain things to them. It's like so many people that you talk to and they say they're atheists, and it turns out they're just not Christians, and so they just or they just don't feel like, okay, I believe stuff is out there, but it's like a deist approach. They believe it's out there, they just don't feel like they have to do anything about it or want to do anything about it.
Right. And I mean, I think like sort of like the hardcore kind of anti-theist thing that's become pretty big on YouTube is a complete intellectual wasteland of throwing the baby out with the bathwater of everything spiritual, and basically like their entire premise is all of human history except the past like 100 years was wrong, and nothing exists except us. It's ridiculous. But I think most people don't believe that. Like really, I think that they know that there's uh there is more than just this, more than just the sort of mundane everyday existence, but the
Well, certainly looking at the thing
around them doesn't give them any clear direction to find anything. It only gives bullshit.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's the it sounds a little more humble to say oh us, our generation, that sort of thing, instead of me. It's like in athletic terms. I have there's been a handful several times in my life where I've covered 25 to 28 miles on foot in a day. But am I going to say it's not possible for anyone to say anymore? It's sort of the same thing spiritually. Am I supposed to say that particularly the sorts of beings, it's like I don't know when I'm going to have awareness of something. It's like the not seeing stuff. The other night I was Friday night I was performing a ritual, and before I didn't see the things, and I wasn't even looking in that direction, but it's like I knew how big they were. It's like you had a behind me, behind my left side, way back was a something that was like 5'7", and the other thing was like 3'8", and the other thing was like 6. What was it? It was over 6 feet, whatever it was. But there weren't people in that part of the room, but I didn't see it either. It was just this sense that, here's this. There's something of that size there, and it's different things. But people say there's some people will tell you, yeah, there's stuff all the time. Now, some of those people you're like, oh, I'm glad I don't, because it's driving you crazy.
Right.
But to say that something's like completely beyond people's, it's like every so much times, it's like, everything. It's like people don't. One thing that the Christians don't get is, like, if you pick up the Bible, pretty much everything except very specific ways of phrasing it that's claimed about Jesus, it is attributed to, especially when you read it in Greek and Aramaic and that sort of stuff, you find out that everything that they say about Jesus, they're saying about someone else in that book.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, well, Jesus must be God. No. Well, why is Moses not God? Why is this guy not? So that sort of thing. But it's like, there can every so often someone has, that ascend the Zoroaster had it, Muhammad had it, a bunch of dudes in India had it. You ascend the you realize that the earth and what we see and is just this wee little speck, like throwing a ring into a desert, and then the next stage out, it's something like that. And it's like what we find out about the universe. Remember, think of how small they used to think everything was compared to what we now see it as.
Right.
And now we realize that most of what's going on in the universe isn't even matter. Dark matter and dark energy is like, what, as much as 96% of the universe. Okay, has it ever seemed like you've encountered the dead?
Have I encountered the dead? It's funny you asked me that question, because I was actually just thinking about something, and this is an experience I had that I'm not sure if it was some kind of spirit, like ghost poltergeist thing, or if it was angels or something related to the light. But I was living in Costa Rica at one point, and I was living with this family who's very well, everyone in Costa Rica is pretty religious. They're Catholics. So they got like the pictures of Jesus and the statues or whatever. They're little mini altars that aren't altars, and they don't want to call them altars because they're spiritually bankrupt. Anyway, this one night I was and there's like a TV in my room, right? And when I fell asleep, sorry, not when I fell asleep, before I fell asleep, I was, I had unplugged the TV, but it came on. It was on, but it was like monochrome. It was like a Game Boy screen almost, and it was like the first person perspective of someone driving on like a country road, but again, it's in monochrome, so it's like really weird looking. And all of a sudden, this girl who looks like she's from the fucking Grudge or something, you know what I mean? Just like a very like unsettling girl, like little girl, and I like. And this was before I had any sort of like experiences with anything spiritual at all. So I was, I just like covered my eyes and turned off the TV, even though it was unplugged. And later that night I kept getting waken up for no reason. if that was some sort of spirit, because my friend who was sleeping in the other room told me that same night he was having some weird experiences too. I don't remember exactly what he said, but we both had this same, crazy weird experience. And it was specifically a house that was religious as compared to the house we were normally staying at, which was just like a boys' home. So, whatever we can make out of that.
Have you had anything that people would call a past life memory? If you think about it, that someone else may call that a past life memory, or
I don't know, because I might have, and I might have thought it. I might have not thought of it as a past life thing. I could have had many past life memories, but they actually, in my mind, they happened yesterday.
so any other particular type of spiritual experience or
Well, I guess I'll just say my most, well, not my most recent at all, but my most, I'd say the one that marks my transition into the spiritual path I do now, which was the first time I tried to work with Hecate, and I did in the woods, and when I was walking there, on the block, the woods I go to are a park. I live in the city, so it's still like a literal woods. You know what I mean? It's not like a what you think of a park where it's like a little block. Like, no, it's like an actual, like, you can go there and hike. But yeah, on that block, on the block going there, like, all I saw was black dogs. Everyone had a black dog. And they were all like the same kind of dog too. And after I did the ritual, the moon was shining really brightly, because when I was walking, into the woods, I was using a flat camcorder flashlight, and by the time I was done with the ritual, I did not need any light to see where I was going because the moon was so bright.
It's interesting sometimes how animals respond to what's going on with that. It's like here, there you don't see it, but there's sometimes little bugs that are coming upon me here. Or maybe you do, I don't know. Because it hasn't froze here yet to kill them off. What was I thinking? It's like with the cats and sometimes other animals, and I mean, I didn't regularly live around cats most of my life, but before that, it's like you get these little yippy little dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you like recite something or do something either in front of them or before, and it's like they're like still and calm and whatnot before you, and it's like, well, maybe not still. Sometimes they're like shaking like mad. It's like, what's this guy doing? Or maybe the dog witnessed something that you don't. It's like there's people, they believe that like dogs and donkeys can sense things that humans can't sense, and same thing with birds. I'm not sure so much distinction in terms of cats. I think cats are sort of on both sides. You know what I mean? Like maybe they can, maybe they're pretty good about sensing different types of entities instead of all those subtle ones that maybe you might want to look at a dog's behavior to figure out?
I mean, the problem is like house cats and house dogs have essentially been bred to the point where they're stupid. Uh, so I mean, they definitely do respond to certain spiritual occurrences, but I would assume probably not in the same way as like a wild wolf or a I don't know, a tiger or something. Just trying to think of like a wild cat,
Oh, it's like you do. Oh yeah, the house cats aren't as responsive as ones that like. It's like here on this ground. There's eight cats that have never that have never been in a house, except sneaking into a house to be chased out of his house. So, they act a lot differently than than other cats. But you look at the pictures of the dogs more than anything else. 100 years ago, how many different breeds of dogs have been bred from something that could hunt and stuff like this, and then by the their nose is kind of even curved down. They look more roundy and weak. So there's got to be something that we're not noticing, maybe, that was lost in the process of all that. What's your opinion on dreams?
By the way, sorry. I think this should be the last question we do because you're starting to cut out. But dreams, to me, I mean, I do very much believe in the sort of shamanic idea that dreams are where you receive the messages of the gods. I've received a lot of messages in dreams. Recently, I was told to start doing the RTRs again in dreams. Whether or not I like JOS, Lucifer told me to start doing the 42 letter name of God RTR. I was told to talk to Hecate for the first time by a spirit in a dream. And I'm also very into lucid dreaming as a practice, and I think that it's learning to lucid dream is something that everyone who's involved in spirituality should master, but I don't see it talked about like at all, really, among Satanists.
Yeah, that's actually true. I haven't really seen much in the way of how, other than just have the just your nondescript sort of thing that some people would say is, have the intention.
Yeah.
Without any technique or something. At the very least, the whole "am I dreaming?" and looking for your reaction, or seeing if you have a reaction going through a door or something. Not even that level of attention to it. I haven't seen. But yeah, I guess. So we were going to cut off here, I guess. So.
Got like a closing statement or anything? Or?
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I've kind of jumbled this. I was thrown off by the thing. I didn't know how long this is going to last. I'm going to obviously. Hopefully, I get practice over time with this stuff. But obviously, well, not obviously. Certainly, I would have picked a guest like this to appear on my show, because I honor creativity. I honor authenticism. I honor individualism, and certainly not the somebody who's going to do things for themselves, even if they are going to involve spiritual forces in what they do, or try to involve them at the very least. I asked you if you have any final thoughts.
Well, thank you for the the description, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, we should do this again sometime. We should definitely have another talk. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll close with a few rounds of the name that I set aside for you. And if I figure out what's any parts of these that I don't currently know. Oh yeah, the middle of the night. So let me say the other two that I didn't tell you what means here. We have Ucky, which is between dusk and dawn, and Ryorh is the word for the devil, if you're okay with that one. The well, that's certainly in your Facebook name. So, Avum Furiora ezzevmgr al Gammakamalt Avum Furiora ezzevmgr al Gammakamalt Avum Furiora ezzevmgr al Gammakamalt Avum Furiora ezzevmgr. And of course, with that and any of these chants, a person can put whatever meaning they decide to put with that, or whatever intentions. It's sort of open, and